like to thank the Senate for having us here because I really hope the House follows suit with having public hearings because the House really hears just like the Senate what people want. My friend here is actually passing out a copy of the presentation I'm speaking from, and I'll email it to Senator Unger when I'm done, and I would appreciate if you would place it on his website along with the other public comments that was placed in it. The first few slides are just basically historical background. It talks about how we kind of got to where we are and how redistricting is supposed to occur, the different factors that were, and a lot of them were earlier explained. If you want to, I just want to point out something historically that it's only been since 1964 that the West Virginia legislature has actually been apportioned based on population, now because Brennan v. Sims at the U.S. Supreme Court. Before that, there was a much greater variance in population among districts than there is now, and I think that was definitely a step in the right direction toward making this a more democratic process to have more equal districts by population. Because quite frankly, we want to represent people, not trees. And this, I believe, is an opportunity for the legislature to take the next logical step in making voting even more fair and more democratic for the people of West Virginia. If you would first turn to page 10, I apologize they're not numbered, it's the one with the picture of the current congressional districts on it. It just shows our current congressional districts the way they are. And the page right after that, which would be page 11, you can see it's the same map that two of the counties have highlighted. Mason County and Clay County, two that are highlighted in light blue. We would propose that in order to equalize the three congressional districts, that the most logical and easiest way to do that without having to really jumble everything up, because I think that the current districts the way they are pretty much good for the congressional districts, would be to move those two counties, or possibly one of them, depending upon exactly how things break out, down to the 3rd district. And that would then create the equalization of population, and at the same time would pretty much keep contiguous groups of people and counties that kind of have a lot in common together. Like I said, I don't have too much to say about the way that our congressional districts are currently structured, because I think for the most part it's working pretty well. If you move on to the Senate districts, again, you're going to hear you've heard some comments, and you're going to hear some more comments, I'm sure, from people from certain senatorial districts that are upset with the way that their counties can kind of cut apart by senatorial districts. And I think we should definitely avoid separating counties as much as possible. We should try to keep counties together in their senatorial districts as much as we possibly can. I'm from the 12th district. I'm from Clarksburg. So I'm actually fairly happy with the way the 12th district is currently drawn. We have 4 whole counties that make up the district contiguous together, and so I would propose that if there is any compelling reason not to, that the 12th district basically be left the way it currently is. Now, the bulk of my presentation actually starts with a quote from Senator Joe Manchin about halfway through the packet. And it's about delegate district. Now, this is where I think we really need to make a change. And I'm going to start off by reading a couple of quotes. One's from Senator Manchin, and one's from your acting Senate President, Jeff Kessler, actually, 2 of them, Kessler. Here's one from Manchin, quote, "I believe the time has come for single-member districts. That delegate will be more attentive and know that area much better than they would in a multi-member district. So is it better service to the citizens and the taxpayers? Absolutely." That was Senator Joe Manchin. And now, moving into a couple quotes from Senator Jeff Kessler, who, as I said, is the current acting Senate President. Quote, "It's something that I feel pretty strong about, that we should have equal representation throughout the state. You should have access to a representative who lives among you and truly represents you." And then he went on to say, "It smells of backroom deals to try to line up districts so that
stay in. That's just wrong. I think we can all agree with what Senator Manchin and Senator Kessler are saying there. There's also a list, there have also been several newspapers, I just listed 3 of them here, from Beckley, Martinsburg, and Charleston, who have come out in favor of single-member delegate districts. And historically, before 1964, as I said, the House of Delegates wasn't even really based on population. And currently, there's a slide in there that shows how the delegates are currently broken up. And 36 of them already come from a single-member delegate district. And what we would propose is that there would be 100 single-member delegate districts in the state of West Virginia, each one electing 1 delegate. The next 3 maps, which are of the United States, are kind of interesting. The first one shows the 10 states that still have multi-member districts, and the 40 in white are the ones that have abandoned it. The next slide shows that there are only 3 states that have more than 2 members in a district. That's West Virginia, New Hampshire, and Maryland. And then finally, only 2 states have more than 3 members in a district, which is West Virginia and New Hampshire. So West Virginia is really outside the national norm here, not only with having multi-member districts, period, but with having a multi-member district with 4 people, 5 people, in the case of Kanawha County, 7 people. And the next slide there is just a map of Kanawha County and how it's broken up, as we heard a little bit of a comment on that earlier, about how the 30th district basically gets all its representation from the urban areas of Charleston and South Charleston, leaving this huge swath of people in the western and eastern parts of the county unrepresented. And if you flip ahead a couple, this one's actually about my home county of Harrison County. It's got a picture of Harrison County on it. This is the 41st district. Obviously, there's a little bit of Whitehall up here in Marion County. It's part of the 41st district. But essentially, other than that little part of Whitehall, the 41st district is Harrison County. There are about 24,300 people that live in Clarksburg and Bridgeport combined. There are about 45,410 people that live in Harrison County but not in Clarksburg or Bridgeport. All 4 of our delegates currently live in Clarksburg or Bridgeport, 2 each. That leaves almost 2/3 of the people of Harrison County unrepresented. It's about 64%, and if you factor Whitehall in there, it goes up to about 65% of people in the district are not represented because they do not have a delegate from their area. If you would divide the county up into 4 districts, for example, then you would probably, the most logical way to do that, and would be fair, most fair to the people of the county, would be, obviously Clarksburg would probably be a district all its own because it probably has the population to support it. Bridgeport and the surrounding area around it would probably be another district. And then if you had a northern district and a southern district that made up the rest of the county, you draw lines about wherever the population indicates, then what you would end up with is you'd have a delegate from Clarksburg that would represent the people of Clarksburg and would know their particular issues. You'd have one from Bridgeport that would know Bridgeport and would live among them and know their particular issues. Then you would have one from the northern part of the county, which is currently, there's nobody from there right now. Somebody maybe from Lumberport or Shinston or Enterprise, or maybe Salem, depending upon which district Salem got put in, because it's kind of in the middle there, that would know what the northern part of the county really wants, that lives among them, that goes to church with them, that grew up with them, went to high school with them. Same thing in the southern part with West Milford and Moss Creek. They deserve somebody that grew up around them and lives among them and can represent them as well. And I would point out that the 41st district is larger than any district in the other state except for New Hampshire. And I'm going to just hit the points on my last slide here, which is why single-member districts. First of all, it creates better equal treatment throughout the state. It creates cheaper campaign costs because there's less barrier entry. Now, redistricting, as you've heard several times prior to my presentation, should not be about protecting politicians. It should not be about protecting political fiefdoms. It should be about representing the people the best way we can. And if you're only running in a smaller geographic area for a House seat, it costs less to run in that area. Because, for example, you have to buy less signs. You have to advertise in fewer newspapers. You might have, and if you're a candidate that's going around to all the VFW halls and other places where they're having dinners, you have to buy fewer dinners because there's fewer places you have to go. You can spend more time in every town in your district, going to wherever it is that the local people eat lunch, sitting down with them, talking with them, finding out what they really care about. And you know more what they care about because you actually live there too. And so for all of those reasons, it would be much easier for ordinary citizens who don't have access to PACs or special interest money to get into the political system and really make a run at it because they think that they can do something for the people of West Virginia and for their district. And we ought to encourage people to be able to participate like that. It would also eliminate party squabbles in the general election. Right now, in the district I'm from, the 41st, we have 4 delegates. And so when it comes to our election time, we've got 8 people on the ballot. You've got 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans, and people got to pick the top 4 that they like and mark them on the ballot. And it's hard for an ordinary person who doesn't spend every day immersed in politics, that doesn't pay a lot of attention to politics, as I don't think most people do on a daily basis, to really know how 8 different people stand on all the different issues, what kind of person each of those 8 people are, and which 4 of those 8 people would best represent their viewpoints and their values. If it was a one-on-one race where you had 1 Democrat versus 1 Republican, and you had 2 people, and they could compare them side by side and say, do I want candidate A or do I want candidate B? It makes it much easier for a common, ordinary person and voter who doesn't want to spend their entire life figuring out politics. They want to go out and have a job and raise their children and do the other things that people do. It makes it much easier when they go to the ballot box to pick somebody that they believe will best represent them. And we ought to help the voters to do that, and that would help with participation, I believe, and higher voter turnout if they felt like they had more choice. And I think that the parts of my county that are currently not represented would come out to vote more if they had a candidate from their local area. Single-member districts have been required by federal laws on the congressional side since 1842. So multi-member districts are really becoming a political anachronism. It's really a throwback to a bygone era. The federal government figured out and got rid of it before the Civil War. And it also brings the people, as I said, closer to the people, the delegates closer to the people. You would have more accountability because you have a one-on-one relationship with your delegate. You pick up the phone, you can call your delegate. You'd be more likely to reach your delegate because they represent fewer people. They'd be more likely to be able to take your phone calls, read your letters personally, respond to your emails personally. It would be better for both sides because they wouldn't have as many people to represent, so they could truly represent the people they do have. And it's something that's gaining support. Other states around the country, and just the last few years, there have been several states that have moved away from the multi-member districts in the last 10 or 20 years. We're one of the last few holdouts here, and I'd like for West Virginia to move forward into the 21st century and go with 100 single multi-member districts and essentially leave the congressional and 12 senatorial districts of